Hey, stranger.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
Most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
Yesterday was a big day in Bay County with the elections, but something else happened earlier in the day, and I didn't get a chance to tell you about it. And I want to get around to that now. And it happened at the Bay County Commission meeting, which occurred at 9 a.m. yesterday. They did something that I was going to ask them to do. It's one of the top priorities to cleaning up local government. And that is ending what is called local preference. And that's where the county commissioners award big contracts like, sports parks, all kinds of stuff, big roads, road projects, debris pickup, all kinds of stuff. And local preference allows them to use people in the community. It's very, very difficult for people outside the community to get these contracts. And I'm going to play for you the news story first, but then I'm going to share with you my comments to the county commission. And I'm going to tell you the looks I saw on their faces. They love local preference. Why did they end local preference? Well, as soon as I heard the story, like the day or two before the meeting, I heard that the county attorney was recommending it to the commissioners. What? Now, one of the guys who loves local preferences the most is Commissioner Tommy Ham. He said so. He's been a big defender of it for a long time. But he was the one who made the motion to do away with local preference. Now, at the meeting, you had their biggest funders. You had the Marshall Brothers there. You had GAC Contracting there. You had George Roberts there, the big road builder. I mean, their biggest donors were standing there saying, hey, guys, we want to keep this thing going here. We got a good gig going here. And the county commissioners looked sick to their stomachs. They're looking at their biggest funders saying, I can't do it. Can't do it, bro. So why would that be? Well, according to Commissioner Griffiths and the news stories that followed, it has to do with the indictments in Lynn Haven. What? So I don't know this to be true, what I'm telling you right now, but this is where all the data points to me. It seems like the commission is now under the microscope. What else would explain this? They all love this gig, local preference. Let me share with you now the news story, and this is WMBB explaining it, but pay careful attention. This is from last night. Pay careful attention to Commissioner Griffiths and what he says and how he says it.
Glen Haven corruption investigation and subsequent indictments also impacting Bay County's bidding process. After passing it 7 years ago, Bay County commissioners voted 4-1 today to repeal the local preference policy. That policy is designed to give local companies the chance to compete with larger out-of-town vendors. As News 13's Erica Orstad tells us, while some think the change is necessary, others believe it hurts the community.
I was pretty disappointed this morning.
Local contractor George Roberts says repealing local preference is a move in the wrong direction.
We do have some jobs coming up in the future that it could affect.
This says the Bay County Commission voted to get rid of the policy, which gives local vendors the chance to match out-of-town vendors if their bids are within 5%. Since the policy's introduction in 2014, it's only been used 2 times, according to county officials.
It doesn't seem to be practical right now. It doesn't preclude anybody from bidding. It just makes the bids a little more aggressive.
Commissioner Griff Griffith says he's sympathetic towards the local contractors' concerns, but the decision was necessary due to the recent indictments in Lynn Haven.
While local preference in theory is great, we want to keep the money local. It has a trickle-down effect. It's simply, right now, it's not good business for Bay County to continue to do it that way.
Commissioner Bill Dozier disagreed, voting against the repeal.
I was one of the ones that worked on the local preference, trying to craft the language to benefit the people of Bay County. And I think the way it's written, that when you're dealing with apples to apples with contractors, that it does benefit the people of Bay County.
I think Commissioner Dozier was the only one that stood up for the community. I mean, it makes a difference in what we do every day.
The policy has been repealed effective immediately after the vote on Tuesday. In Panama City, Erica Orstad, News 13, Panhandle Strong.
Wow. Now, Bill Dozier, who you saw there, Commissioner Dozier, he wasn't the only one who stood up for his community. He was the only one who stood up for the contractors who fund their campaigns. They got a sweet gig, these guys. The Bay County Contractors Alliance, they'll pick which candidate they want in there. And they'll throw about $97,000 into their campaign war chest. And then they'll funnel about $60,000 through Arthur Cullen, campaign manager Arthur Cullen, aka Alex Cantone on Facebook, through Neves Media, right? I never see how they get $60,000 worth of advertising, but that's another issue. Maybe they just spend a lot. I don't know. But it's a sweet gig they have. But Commissioner Dozier was the only one that stayed true to those contractors. Now, you heard Commissioner Griffith say that the money stays in the community. Even that's not true, because the big contractors will hire out and the money doesn't stay in the community. What it does is it causes your taxes to go up. That's what it does. The half-cent sales tax that they passed a few years back, that has been lining the pockets of the contractors. And I wouldn't be surprised if the commissioners were getting kickbacks, but that I cannot confirm. But I'll bet you. I think by the looks on their faces yesterday, and I saw them, they are stressed out. By the way, here's what I told them at the county commission meeting yesterday.
I have a different opinion. I'm asking you to please vote against local preference. It's my belief that it inflates the prices of contracts. When you limit the pool of applicants just to people in this community who, it's a small enough community, we all know, have pretty good relationships with many of you. Often they're your biggest funders. And so by opening it up, it certainly would bring more competition and could and probably would bring lower prices. And that benefits everybody. I mean, it benefits everybody from the people who end up buying the properties or homes, like in the SHIP situation, and so on and so forth. So, I know a county commissioner in Escambia County, and he had commented today that he believes that local preference is sort of a till where county commissioners can reward some of their biggest donors. And we all know this, actually. So please do the right thing and get rid of local preference. Open it up. Let's have more competition and lower prices. Thank you very much.
So there are 67 counties throughout Florida, 67 counties, and 412 cities. And many of them use local preference. Panama City, by the way, Panama City has local preference. It was pushed, I believe, by Commissioner Jenna Halligus, who I believe naively believes that it's a good idea that the money stays in the community. It's good for the community. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, let's see if any of you know, maybe Miss Sarah Moon will know. If I'm not mistaken, she made the motion for local preference on the very day that they voted to give the contract to GAC to build the new city hall. That was a boondoggle and a racket, and everybody knows it. It was supposed to be what, $4 million or something, and it ended up being what? They still don't do their meetings. They still don't do their meetings there. I mean, it is such a racket, this local preference scheme that local politicians use to benefit their biggest donors. Oh, there we go. To benefit their biggest donors, that the state of Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis this year, right now, they are working on a state statute that says if any county uses local preference, they don't get state funding. That's the scope of the problem, that the state legislature is going to, I believe, is going to do that this year. And so the argument a lot of the contractors had was, hey, if the state does it, let the state do it. But you guys shouldn't do it, right? We fund your campaigns. Also, the federal government, if local preference is used, the federal government will not provide grants. So let me tell you a little bit more. This was the response, part of the discussion. You'll hear Commissioner Tommy Ham and you'll hear Commissioner Griffiths. Now remember, Tommy Ham has always loved local preference, but he was the first to make a motion to get rid of it. Take a listen to this.
I mean, this has been around for 7 years, and although those are good ideas, but it's basically been a non-issue for us. I mean, 2 times in 7 years, it really hasn't been an effective tool, and with the limitations that we have on it, because we commingle our funds all the time, and especially with the surtax, we're always Keith and those guys have been great at leveraging our money with other monies to increase even more jobs that we put onto the street. So getting rid of it, if the state is, if we see that coming, I don't see there would be an issue with that, because it really has been a non-issue anyway. And we've been able to turn around and basically double the amount of work that we put on the street because we do leverage our funds. So I think in one hand, I wholeheartedly agree helping out local people. I do. I get that. I get that with those guys. But also, it just hasn't been an issue for us. So I just don't see it as a problem.
Okay. Commissioner, any other comments? If not, do I have a motion?
Well, I'd like to.
Okay.
I mean, I was just thinking if the other 2 guys were going to talk, I was going to wait. Apparently, they're sitting there waiting on me. Yeah, I think in theory, the local preference sounds great. As everybody pointed out, we keep the money local. It's the trickle-down theory. You pay local, they shop local, they buy houses local, you keep it local. It makes great sense. The fact that it's kind of insinuated that it's used as a tool to enrich those who support us is a fallacy, because the procurement code doesn't allow that. It's just simply not true. If it happens in Escambia County, they do things entirely different. What I can tell you is that, as Commissioner Hams pointed out, it hasn't been an issue for us because it's only been used 2 times. The sales tax generates $12, $13 million a year for Bay County. We leverage it to 25, 35 every year because of the funds we grab out and use that leveraging of money to use it. So it's never been in play with the sales tax that's been in place for going on 5 years. It is sad that we've come to this place where we feel like we have to almost penalize our local guys, but I think we all know that in certain areas it probably was taken advantage of. We've seen after the hurricane, these outside agencies that are in town or these outside contractors to make the bids very competitive, very, very competitive. But the locals also do a lot of the work as well. I feel sorry for our local guys. I do. They're being penalized for a lot of things that they're not part of, and so. But we have tough decisions to make. That's part of sitting up on this board.
So on one hand, Commissioner Griffiths and Commissioner Tommy Ham say it's only been used twice in 7 years. But on the other hand, you heard Commissioner Griffiths say it's been taken advantage of. And Commissioner Griffiths also said to the news channels that right now it's not good business for Bay County, especially with all the indictments and the FBI and U.S. attorney looking into Bay County corruption. Right now, it's not a good thing to do. And the county attorneys said, guys, we got to do this, and we got to do this lickety split, is, I think, an exact quote. It was really an incredible moment yesterday. And I think that Panama City will follow the county's lead. They've got to follow the county's lead. There is something going on, and we're not in on it, and we're not supposed to be in on it. But those guys are stressed out. I cannot even tell you. Those are the biggest funders up there. The Marshall Brothers, GAC Contracting. And who else did I mention? Well, you may have seen it. So there's one more thing. This is big. Something's happening. There's one more thing I want to show you. Commissioner Tommy Ham often recuses himself, and so does Commissioner and Chairman of the board, Robert Carroll. Robert Carroll is an engineer. He's actually the engineer of record for other cities. The chairman of the board is the engineer of record for Panama City Beach. He's also the engineer of record, oftentimes, for the St. Joe Company. It's unbelievable. Commissioner Tommy Ham owns Winterfell Construction. Winterfell Construction has its own page on the St. Joe website. He builds homes for the St. Joe Company. So they have voted on things that I think are a tremendous conflict of interest, but those two guys often recuse themselves. Now, there's an issue there. Right? You say, well, if they recuse themselves, if they abstain from the vote, Bernie, what's the big deal? Here's what I said about that yesterday, about recusing yourselves as often as you. Here's the big deal. Just two items, and they're both quick. The first one has to do with something I've been wanting to address for a while, and that is the conflicts of interest at this body, at this commission. And a couple of you, Commissioner Ham and Chairman Carroll, often recuse yourselves. And, I know the reason why, because you have business interests. For example, Chairman, you're also the engineer of record, say, for Panama City Beach government. And so there's a lot of things going on. We all know this. So you recuse yourself, you abstain from the vote, because you have to, according to statute. And the county attorney says, it's legal. It's legal. And it might be. But here's what I'm asking you to consider, and I mean this. Whenever you recuse yourself, every constituent that you represent has no voice, and it's always about development, right? So when you recuse yourself, yes, you have the right to do this, say the attorneys. But when you do that, your constituents have no say on that issue, as big as developments. And it happens often. It happens too often. Now, after saying that, speaking of... how about that? So here's what we know, all right? The county commissioners, except for one, Commissioner Dozier, he was the only one to vote against repealing the local preference that the county attorney said, we got to do, and we got to do it now. So the county commissioners say it's not a big deal, we just got to do it now. It's not a big deal, but we got to do it now. If it's not a big deal, why do you have to do it now? Number one. Number two, there are those walking up, the local contractors, who are saying it's a very big deal. You heard George Roberts, he builds the roads. GAC sent Andrew Rowell, who said it was a big deal. The Marshall brothers there, they said it was a big deal. They all used to agree it's a big deal. Now the county commissioners say, oh, and Tommy Ham made the motion. Almost to say, we don't need it. I don't support that. And then when the news story centers around, the Lynn Haven indictments and corruption played a part in our decision, and the state is about to say, if you use local preference, you can't get state funding. There's something going on, and it's not transparent. They're hoping the cat doesn't get out of the bag, is what I'm trying to say. But I have a feeling, and I'm going to tell you this right now, and I've said it before, and I've been wrong sometimes because it's a guess. But I really have a feeling. I know that the FBI and U.S. attorneys' dragnet is wide. I know that the corruption is wide and deep in Bay County and throughout the cities and Bay District schools. They say it's not, but it is. I think now that Lynn Haven's election is over, I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if more arrests and indictments don't happen by the end of this month. That's like a week and a half. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen. By the way, the sitting U.S. attorney, now that Larry Keefe was forced to resign because Joe Biden wants to put in somebody else there, which presidents do. But the sitting U.S. attorney right now, he doesn't play around. As long as he's in that seat, he's just a prosecutor. He's been on this particular case, Bay County political corruption and election fraud in Bay County. He's been on this from the get-go, and now he's the one making the calls. I would be shocked if we don't hear very soon about more indictments and more arrests. And of course, I'll be following that. In the morning, I'm going to be at the Panama City Beach City Council meeting, where former police chief Drew Whitman will be the new city manager. He'll take a $150,000 contract for that. And get a load of this. They're going to have an assistant city manager now. I think they're going to offer her about $145,000 a year. So they just got rid of one city manager that they paid $170,000 a year for, he was good. Tony O'Rourke was good, but $170,000. So they got rid of Tony O'Rourke the day after he reported corruption inside City Hall. They fired him. I still think Tony O'Rourke's going to file a whistleblower lawsuit soon. It's unbelievable stuff. So they were paying $170,000 for a city manager, and tomorrow they're going to be paying nearly $300,000 for two city managers. I'll be there in the morning to keep an eye on that as well. Oh my goodness. I'm looking at some of your comments, and I'll look over the rest of them soon. But big things are happening. The election in Lynn Haven came out, I think, pretty good. If you want some real reform, if you want transparency, if you want commissioners who actually understand budgets, who actually understand transparency, Lynn Haven could really get cleaned up soon. The election is in about a month, May 18th. That's when the runoff election is. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you again real soon.